Hello and welcome back to the third round. The Layout 2025 series continues. In the last episode, we installed the terminal and configured its access paths. Today, we will install the depot with its turntable and transfer table. I will also cover related topics based on your questions along the way. Throughout the series, links to the track plan in several formats will be available in the video description. The video is organized in chapters for ease of navigation. Last thing before we set off, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe and alert button before leaving today. Super thanks are also available if you feel the content deserves it. Whatever the option you choose will be much appreciated. Many thanks! Now, let's head over to the room. If everything goes to plan, today should be the last major building phase of the series. I have picked and laid out what we'll need for this episode. Spares and empty boxes have started to move back to their shelf. There are still a few things to do, but the end is now well and truly in sight, and I feel I am regaining the control of the room, which is a nice feeling. At this stage, I am coming across more and more limits or mini-challenges. Stock, for example, as I am starting to run out of parts. Here, I received a big help from a viewer called Gordon, who kindly donated a box full of goodies I needed. This was a real godsend. Thank you so much, Gordon. You are a star. Another aspect is my control solution that I originally designed to handle 40 turnouts of signal. This is less than the 54 I have planned for this layout, so I had to spend a few hours adding the missing support. Of course, I needed to assemble additional hardware too, but this went much quicker than the last batch as I managed to bring down the assembly time, including botches, to just under 30 minutes per unit, and I still don't know how. Anyway, hopefully I should have everything I need now, but we'll see. We're going to need the space, so let me shift a few things out of the way. There we are. Let's start with a quick refresher about the area. We'll switch to the track plan for a bit, and we'll zoom to the right of the layout. I have been calling it the depot and shunting area for the entire series because of the uncouplers dotted all over the place, but it is really just a depot. I like depots, but with all the layouts I built in the past, once set up, the novelty quickly wore off, the area devolved into a purely cosmetic feature and ended up just gathering dust. I think this will sound familiar to some of you too. So I wasn't really looking to go through the effort of setting one up this time, but the Märklin plan that inspired this layout changed my mind. Here it is, and we can immediately see that the terminal and depot are the stars of the show. Everything is geared towards movements between the two areas, and the main line looks a bit like an afterthought in my opinion. Usually it's the opposite with these Märklin plans. Looking at the depot, we can see that the main feature is of course the turntable and its locomotive sheds. It is connected to areas dedicated to typical service tasks, as can be seen in the description. I don't intend to do any scenery, but this helps understand the organization. We have an exit to a coaling plant, another one to a filling area for oil-fired locomotives, and various spots are also earmarked for sand, water and inspection. There is even something for diesel locomotives in the form of a siding with a diesel pump. And on the siding to its left, what I thought was a goods shed is more a supply store type thing. It's called Magazin in German, and the long siding at the very top of the depot is meant to store an engineering train, so nothing to do with shunting from the terminal. Based on this organization, the main interaction with the rest of the layout is likely to be mostly engine swaps, and the terminal is set up to make this easy with the ability to uncouple locomotives, as we saw in the last episode. Movements within the depot have also been planned, judging by the location of the uncouplers. A shunter could leave coal wagons on a dedicated siding at the coaling plant, move other loads from one place to another, or take over the maintenance train if need be. All these features would offer many incentives to actually use the area for a change, so I decided to have another go. I kept the depot pretty much as is, but as with the terminal, I felt the need to isolate it from the main line to allow movements between the terminal and depot while trains are circulating on the inner loop. So I shifted it to the right, and it is now only accessible from the center crossings. I reconfigured the upper part to fit in the available space, so the maintenance train siding and the access to the turntable are now closer to each other. This enabled the addition of a pair of turnouts between the maintenance track and the head shunt below, which adds the option to pull a train with a shunter from the terminal and a way for this shunter to exit the siding. I think I should be able to fit a 4 or 5 coach train in there. We'll see. Moving the depot created a space lower down by the main line, which I first tried to fill with sidings, but I wasn't happy with either looks or capacity. So I decided to use the space for the transfer table instead, which is going to be used for diesel and electric locomotives. This way we have all traction types catered for. But shifting the depot also created a small problem I caught just in time for the build. I had shortened the pull-out track with a turnout at the bottom to fit in the available space, but this made it too short for tender locomotives, which I really want to use here. To avoid changes to the main line or a complete redesign of the depot, I compromised on losing one of the turntable exits and shifted the track by one position, which gives me 90 mm more and keeps a similar vibe in terms of looks, as you can see. This is the version of the plan we are going to use today. So let the fun begin. We'll start with the power districts. We need to isolate the 2 entry points to the area, these 2 apparent junctions at the crossings. That is done using the usual bit of electrical tape on the center rail contacts. And now we can lay the track. So I'll get the plan out. I don't think I need to dwell on that bit. You have seen me install track many times in the series, so we'll jump ahead a bit. There we go. I have installed a few sidings, and it is time for the turntable, because I need it in place to make sure the geometry works. I cannot trust the track planning software completely when crossings are involved. So I'll connect the access track first. And we have enough clearance with the head shunt. Good start. Now the coaling plant track and its connection to the turnout. What I have laid leaves a gap, but I was expecting that from the plan. I should be able to fill it with an 8 mm compensation bit and still be within tolerances. But I need the siding I modified in position before I do that to make sure everything fits. So I'll fit the pull-out track and its turnout. then position the three-way turnout it will be connected to, and install the track in between. And it looks like everything is behaving as it does on the plan. All I need is a 16mm compensation bit at the end of the three-way turnout. There I got stuck for a while. I couldn't find the 16mm bit I needed in my spares, and it took me hours to find one just under my nose to finally complete that job. And this is the area fully assembled. The fit is much better than I expected. And I have the 90mm additional length I needed at the end of the pull-out track. Fantastic! So I'll take care of the locomotive shed and transfer table later on. It is now time to hide the wires we have here. So I need to cut some access straps in the foam tiles, drill a few holes, and I'll label and drop all the wiring. And this is the result. Definitely a bit tidier. Now I'll use a signal base as a template to pre-drill all the holes I need for the signals. And slight problem with the first one, as the base doesn't fit in the space. I'll have to set the signal up on the other side and live with this wrong placement. Everywhere else will work as planned. Because everything is packed tightly together in the depot, I will not be able to easily tap the driving power for all the stopping sections from adjacent track joints. So I will need to connect all the feeds directly to the driving power bus. I have prepared all signals for this, and I've replaced the feeder plate with a plug on one of the feed wires. And I can start installing them. It's the same process as with everything else so far. Label the wires, then drop and position the signal. Look at that! There's a lot going on, isn't it? It is time to grab my fresh batch of wireless controller, my crate of wiring equipment, and crawl under the layout to set everything up. Here are a few impressions of the work. Dangling wiring, switches in position, and here's a picture of my very comfortable workplace. And now, a day later, with everything connected. I've distributed everything across two lighting buses, both connected to the same lighting transformer, and I have connected all the power taps for the signals directly to the driving current bus. So let's go back to the surface. And look at that, the bulbs are all lit. I still need to connect the turntable, but we'll do that later after I install the locomotive sheds. Let's try a locomotive quickly. We have power, excellent. I'll do some thorough testing off camera. I am sure I'll find something to mend. Now I am supposed to be able to drive from the depot to the terminal using a single transformer. At the moment this is not possible. Let's give the locomotive a signal. And as soon as it enters the crossing, it stops. I'd have to use another transformer to go further. So let's take care of this now. In the last episode, we configured an independent power district for the terminal and crossing. We will set it up in a way that its power source automatically switches from one transformer to another. We don't need to think about interactions with other automatisms. For example, the long block system we set up a few episodes ago, because there wouldn't be enough time for a locomotive to squeeze in between mainline trains. The only way to do this would be to stop the block system. So there is no priority problem to deal with here, or faraway signals to set to protect the area. We just need to take care of the power source change, for which we need to identify a condition under which it needs to occur. This condition is given when either signal 36 or 44 by the crossings are set to green, so we are going to use them to trigger the change. We need to alternate between two states, so this is a perfect job for, you'll have guessed it, a relay. I'll use a Märklin 7045 again, which we are going to use as a gate. So the shared input will be used to power the district, and its outputs will be connected to the driving transformers. Now, what to do with the control wires? Let's start with the easiest. The default power setting should be mainline power, using the transformer powering the inner loop, so that's transformer 2. This would apply when either signals are set to red. So here I can simply connect both signals' red wires to the red control wire of the relay. This will join the operation of the red aspect of both signals, but this isn't a problem, as it is unlikely I'd have both signals on green at the same time. So that was the easy bit. Now let's deal with the other state. We need to switch to the other circuit when one of the signals changes to green. Obviously, we cannot use the same technique we used for the red aspect, because we'd end up changing both signals to green at the same time. I could simply insert switching tracks and rely on movement detection, but I really want to make sure the change happens only when one of the signals is green, so we need something more. We could use relays to mirror the state of the signals, but I am going to save myself the trouble and use the catenary ports of the signals instead. The circuit is as follows. A switching track is placed after the signal. It is connected to one of the catenary ports. The other port is connected to the green side of the relay. The signal will close the catenary circuit when it changes to green. A pulse of current will be sent to the circuit as soon as a pickup chute drives over the switching track. When the signal is red, the circuit will remain open and nothing will reach the relay. And this is how it looks like on the layout. I've set the relay up under the board, so let's have a go. I'll give the locomotive a green signal. The transformers are all at 0. I'll activate the one allocated to the depot, and we can move on the crossing. Let me set the signal to red. Nothing's happening. We have no more response from the throttle on transformer 3, so that's the depot transformer. And transformer 2, the one for the inner loop, is now operational. So, job done. Now this circuit will obviously only work if a trip initiates from the depot, but this should be the most frequent scenario. I can add another switching track by the exit of the terminal to add the functionality in the other direction, but I am not sure I'll need it, so I'm going to leave this one for another day. Back to the depot. Now the transfer table. Here is the beast. I haven't seen it for at least 5 years, I think. So this is a 7294. This model was sold for a very long time. It was released in 1979 and was produced until 2011. It was replaced by the 72941, which looks identical aside from the colors. I think the main difference is the motor and gearing, but I haven't had one in my hands, so don't quote me on that. The model was designed following the same philosophy as the turntable, so it is fitted with M-track connectors and can be used on the floor. Even the latest model, released after the discontinuation of M-track, still features these connectors. The K and C-track system both feature adapter tracks that can be used with the transfer table. The transfer table is made of plastic. It features 10 exits, 8 are for storage, 2 at the bottom are for the approach. The storage exits are offset from each other and are powered by the bridge when it stops. The approach exits are aligned and always on, although the track can be isolated and separately controlled. The bridge is powered by a DC motor hidden in the cabin. Its power is transferred by a set of metal gears to a transmission arm spanning the entire width of the bridge, with a gear at each end. These gears interlock with teeth arranged in 2 tracks molded in the base of the well. The motor needs DC, which it receives directly from the controller provided with the transfer table. The controller rectifies the AC from the lighting circuit using a pair of diodes. The transfer table will not work without it. Power and control wiring plugs into connectors located on a single side of the base. The controller wires should be attached to the group of 3 connectors on the right-hand side. The connectors for track power are located on the left. The red connector should be inserted in port B1 and the brown to the O as usual. B2 is to be used to power catenary. For example, this set 7295 that was sold alongside the 7294. The set contains 2 gantries and a line for the bridge, as well as smaller wires to be attached on masts for the track connections. 7295 has been out of production since 2004, and I think third parties offer equivalent sets these days. Each port is connected to a dedicated rail running across the entire length of the well. The bridge is fitted with pickup springs for each of them. Let me quickly set it up. And doesn't it look at home on this spot? The operation is similar to the turntables in the sense that the motor runs until the bridge reaches a position. The controller then activates a secondary circuit to set the motor in motion again. But the instructions and layout of the controller can be confusing. It certainly was to me. Arrows are not always easy to interpret. Pushing the slider in one direction is only accidentally going to set the bridge in motion, most likely if the bridge was stopped in between positions. Otherwise, this will not be enough. We have a 2-step process. Push the slider to set the direction. Press and briefly hold down the slider to set the bridge in motion. Best wait a couple of seconds to give the bridge enough time to disengage from the position. This was not immediately obvious to me, and the reason why I use a white controller instead of the blue one that came with the transfer table. I won't go into details. All I'd say is that you shouldn't trust foreign wisdom. Couple of things regarding maintenance. Oil should be applied only to the lubrication points listed in the instructions. They are located in the motor compartment inside the cabin. The motor is not screwed down to anything and is held in position by molded supports in the base of the cabin. It is clamped down by further supports on the upper part of the cabin assembly, so it tends to move if the upper assembly is not screwed down properly. When this happens, the motor gear will likely lose contact with other gears in the cabin, and you'd hear the motor run, but the bridge wouldn't move if this was the case. The power rails can become oxidized if the transfer table is not used regularly. For light oxidization, sending the bridge up and down the entire length a couple of times should be enough. Heavier oxidization might require using some contact cleaner or a light pass with a track rubber. Be mindful not to damage any of the molded teeth in the base of the well in the process. The bridge can be lifted if need be, for example to remove dried oil someone might have applied by mistake. This is done by moving the bridge all the way up, then gently pushing one end towards the two notches by the well, and the bridge end will pop up. Okay, apart from that, this thing is not the quietest, though it is not as bad as the turntable. There are third-party options available to improve this aspect. This involves a motor change. Okay, back to the build. Before I crawl under the baseboard for more wiring fun, I'll take care of the locomotive shed. Here it is. You will have seen it before if you follow the channel. Let me take the roof off. It is just a matter of loosening the two outer chimneys. I'll tidy the lighting wiring a bit and we'll set it up. There we are. I've used some tape and added a bulb and rerouted the wiring. Now we can add the track. That's two full-length straight, they're 5106s, and a 5109 compensation bit. There are some metal tabs to keep things in place. The track simply slides in place until it touches supports by the back wall, and the front needs to be pushed down on metal tabs by the door. And we can present the assembly to the turntable. I find it easier to loosely insert the fish plates of each track, then the shed can simply be pushed against the turntable and everything should slide into its final position. There we go. And we can put the roof back on. Look at that. This really looks like a depot now. So, it is time to wire the controls. I will use the control box for the transfer table, but for the turntable I will have a wireless switch I designed. It simply plugs into the existing ports, and I have fitted the wiring I will need already. There. The switch really looks homemade with the red board haphazardly glued on the top. Let me fit everything under the baseboard and we'll look at the dashboard controls when I test the turntable later on. One moment please. And we are back. The switch is in position. I have added an additional lighting bus to the area here to power the transfer table and turntable. Let's go back up and talk about this. I have measured the current draw on the right hand side of the layout and I am at 1.8 amps, so about 50% of the capacity of the lighting transformer. In theory, I should be able to power the turntable and transfer table from the same circuit, but they are power-hungry accessories and I like to keep a comfortable reserve of 1.5 to 2 amps to ensure trouble-free switching of accessories. I have therefore added an additional bus powered from the driving transformer used for the depot. This shouldn't interfere with driving, as I am unlikely to drive and run the two tables at the same time. Okay, let's give the turntable a try. The controls are on a separate dashboard tab I've called Yard. I have designed a traditional layout, so I can simply go left or right. Let's try. We are going left. And right. And I can also switch the lights on or off in the shed. See? Magic! I also have a more advanced function with indexing. The wireless switch is fitted with a current sensor to measure the current draw from the motor. When the current drops, the software will assume a position has been reached and start the motor as many times as required until the bridge has reached its destination. So let's do a quick movement from position 7 to position 4. And the bridge is moving. There is a small delay for the current to reach the threshold where the sensor will start the motor again. And it goes on from position to position until it reaches position 4. This turntable is a slow thing, isn't it? But it will get there. And we are there. There we go. It still works. Okay. With this, I think the depot is done now. Hooray! This was a very long video again. I wanted to finish it with a few maneuvers, but I am not familiar enough with the numbering and position of all the stuff I installed today. So attempting to film anything under these conditions would be a complete disaster. I need a lot of practice first, so we'll remain static today. We are more or less done now. I still have a couple of things to do that will justify an additional installment. I have a level crossing to set up, a back scene and a few accessories to install, as well as a few signaling changes to make on the main line. Some or all of these will feature in the next and hopefully last installment in the series. Okay, that would be it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, hopefully enough for you to give it a like, maybe subscribe if you haven't already done so, or even send a super thanks my way if you feel the video was worth it. Thanks as ever for all your support, and bye for now.